on the broader level, when we talk about AI, I really like to call it intelligence augmented, because at the end, it's really about humans plus AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think intelligence augmented is really amplified. It's about how do we amplify that intelligence and then translate it to wisdom.
Welcome to Mindful AI, the podcast that delves into the world of AI and its responsible use and development. I'm your host, Natasha Fong. I'm the founder of Zenta, a provider of mindfulness programs for workplaces. In this podcast, we'll hear from thought leaders in tech industry, academia, and mindfulness so that the layperson like myself can be smarter when thinking about the important topic of mindfulness in AI development and use. I am so honored to have my guest today, Anuraj Gambhir, with me on the Mindful AI podcast. Anuraj is an innovation evangelist and business strategist on the outside, and altruist philosopher on the inside, and a million things in between. He's focused on shaping the future of humanity from mindset to heart set. And he has over 30 plus years of experience as an early pioneer across the mobile ecosystem spanning 5 continents. Some prominent companies he's worked with include NASA, JPL, Optus, Logica, Ethos, T-Mobile, Orange, GSM Association, Sharp, Siemens, Spice, Ericsson, MTS, Globacom, and also Singularity U, where he is a global expert, faculty member, curation partner, mentor, and chapter lead. He's been an early pioneer in the design and development of the smartphones and the convergent smart mobile devices revolution. Anuraj's deeper quest and purpose has been at the intersection of technology and spirituality, where he's co-created and tinkered with numerous concepts from Zen smart devices to wearables, enabling a whole new bliss mode. He believes that with positive and abundant mindset through a philosophy and movement he has spearheaded called Wise Mirror, the use of exponential tech and activating and curating relevant communities and ecosystems, we can make the impossible possible. I'm so delighted to have you on, Anuraj. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Natasha. It's really a great pleasure and honor to be here.
I'd love to talk so much more about your deep experience and particularly the intersection between spirituality and tech. But first, can you give us a brief background on your interest and experience with AI and machine learning?
I've spent most of my career working on disruptive, radical innovation and exponential technologies, enabling deep impact. And AI, of course, has been amongst the most powerful technologies as part of that whole portfolio. I've seen it grow exponentially, and now one may say it surpasses even exponential, and it could be called quantum growth. So although my background is more innovation and more holistic product design, I have seen how AI has influenced software, firmware development, and increasingly embedded across the board. So with the early career that I had in telecoms and mobile technology, I was deeply involved with some of the early smartphone design. And I've also seen a lot of the early operating systems like Palm OS, Windows CE, or Compact Edition, or Pocket PC, as it was called. And then further, as we optimize for more mobile sort of things, and I'm talking about now 25, 30 years ago, when we had Symbian, and then Android, of course, came later, and then eventually iOS, which Apple, of course, launched as a breakthrough operating system. We've seen AI play a very key role across all these elements, and the foundation of these, and of course, in the whole framework of the app stores that have also been around. So I've had a tinker. I haven't got very deep. I'm not a software guy, but certainly following AI for quite a while, seen that the long gestation it's had from many winters, summers, and now finally, I think it's sprung for the masses. So we're really seeing that whole growth so rapidly happen.
Sure. Anuraj, now can you tell us more about the intersection of technology and spirituality? What are the examples that you've worked on, and how do you see tech and spirituality converging?
I think this is where we've really seen the extrapolation and really where Wise Mirror has come about. And it's really that powerful intersection of exponential tech with spiritual values and the systems that drive us to create something, again, more around a humane AI with planet people before profit. So it's really, by its very nature, I think that we've really tried to see how can we be a lot more strongly positive. And for me, the tinker has really been, how do we bring more meaningful tech for the masses. And I think I was very fortunate to have presented to His Holiness Dalai Lama a while ago and really come up with something. And it was not about saying switching off technology, but flipping it into a new mode, and like an aircraft mode. And that's what I call bliss mode at that time. So I kind of flipped a quotation of Dalai Lama back to him, and I'll just see if I can find, yeah, I have it here. So it was the inspiration really that he had in one of his own quotations saying, science and technology are powerful tools, but we must decide how best to use them. What matters above all is the motivation that governs the use of science and technology, in which ideally heart and mind are united. So I think it's about that unification of how do we enable our true selves and amplify the good, the greater good for us and the planet and everyone around us. And I think that's where technology is such a great enabler. By its very nature, it's neutral, so it can be used either way. But I think that's where we really try and flip that model. And Wise Mirror really came about when we looked at Black Mirror was one of the trigger points, which has been unfortunately very dystopian. It's very powerful, but a lot of geeks love it. And we've all been kind of pseudo-inspired by the aspect of technologies in there. But I think, unfortunately, they've been deployed in a very dystopian or negative way. And for the layman, it's a kind of a Terminator plus plus. So it was that flip from me to we, from fear to love, and scarcity to abundance. And really all that whole movement as we've been sort of building on for quite a while collectively and saying, okay, how do we bring about something a lot more positive for humanity at large? And that's where we sort of came up with this whole concept of White Mirror, which has really been looking at how do we flip some of the transmedia elements of showcasing. And we had a comic book, we've got videos, we've got a lot of content there, which is in transmedia format, a virtual reality world, a Wise Mirror universe. And then the Wise Mirror being the broader philosophy or movement and really the community that is driving a lot of thought leadership, where the way I say it is really it's about where ancient wisdom intersects and meets conscious leadership. So, yeah.
I love that. I've just got goosebumps hearing about this, and I want to see more of the content that the community has created around Wise Mirror. It just sounds so fascinating. And wow, your work with the Dalai Lama as well. I completely agree. Technology is an enabler. So you've said that you're working on shaping the future of humanity from mindset to heart set. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Maybe just touching on AI a little bit further. It's where I think AI is at such a pivotal moment, right? We're really seeing that it's at a defining time in history where we really need to make it a lot more profound. And I think talk about profound, I'll just quote my colleague Sundar Pichai, who's heading Google right now. He talks about artificial intelligence really as the most profound technology in history of human civilization, potentially more important than the discovery of fire and electricity or the internet. And I mean, that is really profound, right? So we talk about how do we bring that very important aspect of how technology and AI for good. We've got so many aspects, and certainly what you've got going here with mindful AI, it is phenomenal. I think that's what we need to champion. And with AI for good, that's been championed by the United Nations, by ITU, International Telecoms Union. We've got loving AI, intuitive AI, benevolent AI, and of course, our own wise AI that we've been working on. So that's where I really see how this whole movement can come about in terms of shaping us into a phase where we really move from building that exponential mindset, but also then it's connecting to our heart. And when we talk about in the corporate world, B2C or B2B and so forth, but I say H to H is the most critical part, or human to human or heart to heart connection. And I think that's where we need to sort of flow and look at our entire makeup, our head brain, our gut brain, and our heart brain all need to be synchronized. So it's that coheartability, which is that fourth term that I'd coined in, was what we're sort of orienting our proposal for SDG 18 in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals around that. So, yeah.
That's so incredible. And how has the business and corporate world been receiving this idea of H2H and the idea of heart over mind?
Well, I think really well, because it's at the end, it's everybody in the corporate world or the employees, they're all humans. And I think at the end, we all connect much more deeper than the superficial business world out there. When we really connect at the much deeper level, everything else can thrive so much further all around us. So I think that's where we need to get to the roots, get to the foundation of what is so powerful and strong. And when our consciousness being part of that super consciousness and everything is connected, right? We talk about from mycelium right through to every aspect. And even in quantum mechanics, we talk about how a little, or the butterfly effect talks about a little action happening on this end creates a tsunami on the other end. Even on the interstellar or spatial level, we see the same sort of things happening, and it's been proven in the science world already. So I think where science, technology, and spirituality intersect, there is just some phenomenal awakenings for humanity right now, where we really are realizing that we need to go deeper within. We need to apply these quantum tools, and certainly meditation is one of them, and mindfulness. I was very fortunate to meet Thich Nhat Hanh, who's founder of mindfulness. We hosted him in India, actually, at the Spice Group when I was working there. And it was just phenomenal. Again, having that aura, having that energy of great people like him, His Holiness Dalai Lama, and many other great gurus. And having grown up in the sort of foothills of the Himalayas, I was very fortunate to be exposed to that ancient wisdom and a glimpse of it. And I think you never stop learning. So I'm still waking up and continually learning and realizing, wow, there is so much out there that we can tap in terms of our knowledge and wisdom. And now, of course, with the technology world, we've really seen how does that information that is so scattered around there, which is data, unstructured data as one may call it, how do we make it a lot more structured, that information to knowledge, and that knowledge really translate or transcend to true wisdom. And then we can apply it in a lot more meaningful way for the greater good.
Right. So are you working on that, bringing that data together of ancient wisdom in order to make it structured and consumable, learnable by the masses?
Well, I think that's what we plan to do with Wise AI to an extent. So it's really, we've been playing with a few little tools here and there. We've got some more of my colleagues who are more techies and more hands-on. And we've certainly been exploring some of those ideas. But I think on the broader level, when we talk about AI, I really like to call it intelligence augmented, because it's at the end, it's really about humans plus AI, right? And it's that journey that we're talking about, the other terms that are being used, AGI, ASI, general intelligence, and super intelligence. We're really trying to build that roadmap. And I think intelligence augmented is really amplified. It's about how do we amplify that intelligence and then translate it to wisdom. And that's where we come up with this term in Wise Mirror. And we've been talking about how do we build that foundation for our own kind of that AGI, which is called AWI, or Awakened Wise Intelligence. And that's where we've been also encompassing another sort of subterm that I've been looking at called NGI, or Natural General Intelligence, which is really, there's so much to learn from nature. So the work I've been doing, I would say, in my broader vision and manifestation of smart cities, smart devices, is how do we bring all of this together in a lot more meaningful way for applying the technology so that we can solve the SDGs, but actually go a lot more beyond and in helping humanity across every board of work, life, and create that equilibrium around it.
Right, because nature's already figured out so much of that intelligence. It's just that we haven't tapped into it, right?
Exactly. There's so much out there. And I think there's some amazing documentaries. I'm sure you've seen them on Netflix, the one on mycelium, on mushrooms, and which really talk about that deep interconnection that we have and how nature solves every little issues or the grand challenges that it comes across. And we're facing that pivotal moment right now. I mean, we've seen floods, we've seen fires, we've seen so much happening around the world. It's that wake up that nature's giving us and saying, look, that harmony is out of balance. We need to build that ecosystem back. We need to reorient our thinking and our touch points with nature.
Absolutely. Anuraj, what do you think are some of the potential challenges and limitations of developing AI mindfully, both for businesses and society as a whole?
Obviously, there are plenty of challenges. And I think as we are rushing with these sort of models and algorithms that are being deployed out there, it all comes down to really mindfulness. Again, as we're saying, how do we take that pause and deeper ponder and reflection time and take actions with a very conscious and mindful approach, right? So I think the challenges are very much around that rush that we're trying to get too much done too quickly. How do we translate that? And a lot of the challenges around the current world that we talk about in the old VUCA or the current VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So we need to sort of translate that into a new VUCA, right? And this is where I've been saying it's about vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. So what we need to do is really take into account what are those optimal journeys that need to be taken to build the right AI and ensure that it serves every, and also taking into account all the second and third order consequences, which are so important. So when we talk about highlighting things like AI ethics on the radar, having the right debates, it's very important. And I think we're seeing corporates, everybody sort of wake up to, people have also got chief wellness officers, chief technology officers, but there's also the need for AI ethicists and this role of a chief AI officer potentially in a lot of the large organizations who need to ensure that we can deploy this mindfulness approach to within their organization and customize it in the right way. Because there's obviously so many large LLMs out there. There's a lot of tools. There's just a plethora of people working on so many interesting things, but a lot of it seems a bit rushed in some ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where we've seen education, where students have rushed and taken things from ChatGPT and so forth, but it hasn't been truly correct in some ways, or hasn't had the real depth of what should come up from a human, you know. So I think we still have a lot to be more to be desired for. We've come a long way, no doubt, but we cannot rush these things out there. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. We shouldn't rush, but people are doing it. So
yeah, I think we can tinker, but I mean, the point is that we should not launch, right? I think it's that fine line when we talk about in products, we talk about designing alpha, the alpha stage, and going into beta. So it's the beta stage where you're doing a lot more testing, A/B testing, and all that, and so forth with the customer. And so you have to have a kind of a contained customer audience, the pilots that we call, or having these closed user groups for testing a scenario or a product or a solution. And then launching it in the wider public should be thought through very carefully with the right elements, the whole ecosystem and all these multiple level consequences already thought through very carefully. Because there's bias everywhere, but it's a relative scale, right? It's about how do we control that bias? How do we transform it or flip it into the right type of thing? So the inputs are so important in there. And the moment there is some rogue element in the input, it can amplify into something very undesirable at the end, right? As the output. It's really about that mindfulness again, at every level, at the micro level, at the nano level, probably. Yeah.
Agreed. How can we gauge the direction of humane AI or AI that does no harm? And what metrics or indicators can we use to gauge that?
That's a really good question because the moment we talk about metrics, we can also obscure the result in some ways. But of course, I think it's what you can quantify, you can change. So, and that's really what I preach a lot. And we do a lot of work, and I do a lot of work in the wearable tech space. So I think the quantified self movement, and we do have a lot of metrics and KPIs elements around it. But at the same time, you have to let go at a certain point. And I think it's a combination of subjective or qualitative and objective or quantitative, and more so the former, right? Where you really got to bring in those soft elements of the subjective behavior of what the true impact is coming about. I want to sort of compare it with how we're looking at nations are measuring the gross happiness, or sorry, the GDP generally, but it's being transcended now really to the GHQ, the gross happiness quotient, by countries like Bhutan, who took the lead in that space. And there are many others now. So it's really that metrics of how do we see citizens who are happier, healthier, more fulfilled, and have got that more impact through deeper meaning in what they're doing. So I think it comes down to the level of the national or the planetary ikigai, or what we call in Singularity U, the MTP, you massively transforming purpose, and brought down to the individual level, and then to organizations, obviously mapping it with their vision, mission, and objectives. And I think that's the role that the C-level suite and organizations in a corporate world, they need to play a very key role at the board level to ensure that it seeps down the whole organizational culture. So a lot of my work was actually in the discipline of innovation, but also in the culture of innovation, and really seeing how do we marry the two together to build the right frameworks, to have the right processes, but at the same time, ensuring that everybody at the coalface, everybody's charged up with the right incentives, has really aligned themselves so deeply with the ikigai of the organization.
That's brilliant that this is being done and measured. There's measurements out there that's helping guide this along.
Mm.
Can you think of any examples of companies or organizations that are already using AI mindfully in their products and services, and what results have they seen?
I was at Google HQ here in Sydney, and we had a very interesting event on the future of AI in healthcare. There were companies which were presenting there who I've all found quite doing some amazing work. Harrison AI, you would have heard of. Ekin, which is a friend, Lee Yersley. She's actually launched this very empathetic generative AI that cares, and that's helping you run your home. And I love their vision. So let me just read their vision out to you. Imagine a world in which we are kinder to ourselves, to each other, and to the planet, with an AI that can care about our goals and our dreams and can help us achieve them. They're doing some really interesting explorations there currently with NASA. They're testing it in space to understand mental health elements such as loneliness, which is obviously a very major epidemic out there. There's ID Health was another one which had presented there. We've seen a lot of great examples of AI being used previously by IBM with Watson, which has been applied across so many domains, and healthcare, of course, was one big one where they found many potential cures for many cancers also. So there's so many different applications, I would say, in AI across the board. Another ones I'm seeing is Ben Goetzel, founder of SingularityNet, had revealed Grace, which was the younger sister of Sophia. So I think once we've manifested AI through robotics, obviously, which has been around for some time, but we're seeing a lot more humane touch points there. I'm sure you saw Sophia from Hanson Robotics, and I was very fortunate to have a great half-an-hour one-on-one with David Hanson, the founder of Hanson Robotics.
Wow.
And just chat with him about actually this whole point around spirituality and consciousness and how it intersects with all this very sophisticated mechanization and the work and the development of Sophia. He was very much into it, and I was so amazed the work that he's been doing. And of course, another colleague who's been working with him, and that is Dr. Julia Mossbridge, who runs a very interesting entity called TILT, which is the Institute for Love and Time. And they're creating something called Loving AI, which was the basis for Sophia, actually. And a lot of the work she's been doing is about the future self, time travel into your future self, and sort of mapping out what is the ideal steps and a journey for us, and how we sort of see reality at different levels, and very much taking a deeper dive into the concept of unconditional love. Those are facets which we've imbibed a lot in Wise Mirror, and there's learnings across the board to how do we look at these faculties of creative intelligence, critical thinking, and amplifying all these different aspects which can enable us to do some greater things. And some of the work that I've been doing with some startup accelerators like Remarkable, which has been very close to my heart in terms of how they're doing the greater good for the differently abled or disabled. And we've got great tools in transcranial direct current stimulation for cerebral palsy, stroke victims, looking at how do we really impact people with and increasing their motor skills with disability and so forth. So there's a lot of things out there which we can work on and tools that are underway.
So fascinating and really inspiring to hear that there is so much work being done on that side of AI. I know when we met, you demonstrated some really cool devices and tools. What are some of your favorite AI tools or up and coming AI related things to look out for?
The AI tools that I've been really using, Pictory AI has been a great one that we've tinkered with, in the recent times, which is really script to video. And since I'm working on a project of a documentary for Humane Tech right now, we actually used it to create a teaser. Then Midjourney is really great for art. Runway for animating images. In Wise Mirror, we had Hey Pi, which was Pi, which has been really caught a lot of attention, I think, in terms of the humaneness that it sort of brings in. There's been a bunch of things, and I'd say another good one that I've seen is AskDeepak.ai, which is Deepak Chopra's. He's got almost, I think, 80 to 80 plus books, which have all been put in a smart AI app.
Oh, I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah.
Need to check it out.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of that type of things, which I would say a lot of the companies that I was mentoring as an EIR for TransTech or Transformative Technologies, which is based out of California or Silicon Valley. Positive Prime, I Am Connected, the Calm device for frequency healing and sound healing. So there's a lot of things which are already looking at AI as an embedded foundation for sure, from machine to deep learning, and we've seen some really good things in virtual mixed reality. So Trip, for example, TRIPP, which is a great tool for immersive fitness for your inner self, and promoting mental health. And so there's a lot of tools for mental well-being and overall that we've seen, the calm headspaces and so forth. And there are so many others who being more customized and launched out there in this space.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts about mindful AI or spirituality in AI that you'd like to share?
Well, it's really, how do we build something which was science fiction earlier and making it into science reality? And I think I'd say it's about how do we bring about this movement, as again with my colleagues on transhumanism, we talk about the three facets, the super well-being, intelligence, and longevity. How do we harmonize and bring something a lot more meaningful? So a lot of the work I've been exploring on the brain-computer interface in neurotech has been, how do we elevate humanity with having the right mindset, and then moving into the heart set, like I said, which tools like the heart math, which I've got right in front of me here, which is great to measure your coherence and help you. For people, really, it's great to explore, tinker, and try out new tools. Certainly the software tools, but also there's a lot of hardware, wearable tech, which you can try out, and because they do give you the right nudges, but you don't have to get too attached to them. Use them to a certain point, and then it's important to also do digital detoxes. So on one hand, even I propose that technology is a great savior, but at the other time also that you do need to get away from it to have the true mindfulness with your only true self and be out in nature. So yeah, it's really the balance of all of these different things is so critical.
Yeah, balance is so critical. Last question. Who or what do you follow for AI updates?
I've got my colleague, Dr. Alan Thompson, who runs Life Architect AI. He's part of our Weismarer team also. I certainly follow Peter Diamandis, Ray Kurzweil, founders of Singularity U, Mo Gaudet. He's had some great podcasts with Deepak Chopra also. There are other people from certainly the science and spirituality space who with tech, Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza and HeartMath Institute, Sadhguru, so many others in that sort of space I think it's in and out of different sort of circles and exploring and tinkering. So it's great to share with like-minded people like yourselves with what's hot out there, what are the current discussion points, and cross-pollinate, I would say, is so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Anuraj, for coming on the podcast today. It was an absolute joy and delight. I loved hearing about all of your wisdom and your deep knowledge and experience, your connectedness in this space. That was all brilliant. So thanks again.
Thank you, Natasha. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you for tuning into Mindful AI. I hope that our conversation has provided you with valuable insights and perspectives on the fascinating developments in AI. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Also, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media or via our website at Center Meditation to share your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Thanks again for listening to Mindful AI, and we look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations in the future.